Alright, now we definitely live on YouTube. Oh, let me check, cause this shit, it will act crazy. That goddamn phone, man. This shit getting ridiculous. 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 Yeah, I'm definitely live on YouTube, but I need to be on the shorts. Usually how I find it is doing this. Let me see. I don't know, man. Ain't showing this. What the fuck? Alright, it is what it is. I was listening to my boy talk. Let me see where he at.
All these cards. Right here in my hand, I have an RTX 3060. Now this was a graphics card that came out in what, 2020 or 2021, but this is still a great graphics card that holds up well today. I was playing Clair Obscure Expedition 33. Great game, by the way. I have absolutely been loving that game. This card can play pretty well in that game. Even to this day, I was playing at 1440p, like medium to high settings, which was pretty good with a little bit of upscaling, and it was a completely great gaming experience. I wouldn't really complain at all about it. But as I've shown you guys many times in the past, the RTX 4060 was barely an upgrade to the 3060. In fact, in some ways, like with the memory that's available on it, is actually a downgrade. And I'm not even sure if I 100% recommend people to go to a 4060. A weird spot to be in, like generation on generation, you'd think that things get better, but it seems like the 4060 might have gone backwards in that type of sense. This brings us to the RTX 5060. Now the 5060 Ti has come out, and it hasn't really been all that impressive. Like if you just look at some hardware unboxed data here, 76 FPS, 4060 Ti right here is getting 66 FPS. Not really that impressive for a generation. The thing is, when you actually break down prices and stuff like that, MSRP is supposed to be $380 for the 8GB version and then $430 for the 16GB version. As you can see, the first graphics card that shows up is actually an 8GB one, and that is $40 over what it's supposed to cost. So these cards don't exist at their real price point. This is probably due to tariffs as far as I can tell right now, but that doesn't mean the GPU market is getting better at all. In fact, I think it's getting kind of worse. And as you saw by the performance, it's not really that impressive either. I mean, it can't even catch a last generation 70 class card, and that's been something that's usually been easily achieved from a generation of graphics card. And that applies to NVIDIA's like whole generation here. An RTX 5080 can not really get even close to a 4090. A 5070 Ti doesn't really match a 4080. I mean, it can get kind of close, but the 5070 Ti is really just a marginal upgrade over a 4070 Ti Super. And then you see a 5070 right by a 4070 Super. A 4070 Super is actually tied neck and neck with NVIDIA's RTX 5070 by the actual market right now. The 5070 is extremely expensive. It's supposed to be $550. It's going for over $600 very regularly. I went to Micro Center. The prices there are just ridiculous. So that's what brings me back to the RTX 5060. Base 60 class card is typically like the most popular graphics card in the generation because it's reasonably priced and it has good performance, good entry level performance that can carry you usually, you know, a good few years into the future. At least that's how it's been. Now we go here to the RTX 5060. NVIDIA's announced it for $300 and it's going to be available on May 19th. Apparently, but there's a lot of asterisks to this whole situation because NVIDIA is aware that this new graphics card is going to be very, very bad. And it doesn't take much but to actually look at their very own marketing. None of these is real performance. This is like a multi-frame generation, which maybe could be a good feature, but NVIDIA is clearly trying to market this green bar acting like it's real performance compared to the other graphics cards. Here's RTX 5060 and Resident Evil 4. This is the closest thing that we even get to a real benchmark showing the real performance of the card without all the frame generation bullshit. And as you can see, it isn't like a massive uplift over the 4060. I'll do a little line here in post to show where these are, maybe like a 2 times line, a 1 times line. So maybe the 5060 looks okay. It's like 20% faster. And if you were to compare like an older generation, it looks decent in terms of a generation uplift. Here's a 2060, which came out in 2019. And its successor was RTX 3060. People weren't really that impressed with the 2060, but as you can see, the 3060 was realistically only about 16% faster according to Tech Power up here. So maybe the 5060 is a reasonable performance uplift over the 4060, but as we talked about earlier with the 4060, that card has some major flaws, like it has 8 gigabytes of VRAM. I think most people, if you're in the space of PC gaming, you're probably, because, you know, $300 for a GPU, that sounds like a blessing, but we all know that this is get to a real benchmark showing the real performance of the card without all 20% faster. And if you were to compare like an older generation, it looks decent in terms of a generation uplift. Here's a 2060, which came out in 2019, and its successor was RTX 3060. People weren't really that impressed with the 2060, but as you can see, the 3060 was realistically only about 16% faster according to Tech Power up here. So maybe the 5060 is a reasonable performance uplift over the 4060, but as we talked about earlier with the 4060, that card has some major flaws, like it has 8 gigabytes of VRAM. I think most people, if you're in the space of PC gaming, you're probably getting sick of hearing about 8 gigabytes of VRAM, but the only reason we keep talking about it is because it keeps popping up as a problem. 8 gigabyte on a graphics card was available as a mainstream thing back in 2017 or 26, I think it was 2016 when the GTX, yes, we were still using GTX at the time. The GTX 1070, we all know, is a very mainstream graphics card. So obviously we haven't progressed that much if we're still looking at a mainstream graphics card still just having 8 gigabytes of VRAM. New games that come out are wanting more than 8 gigabytes of VRAM to be on the GPU so we can actually load in the damn game. And NVIDIA has advertised it to be at $300. Looks pretty good. Like right now, you'd think, you know, $300 for a GPU, that sounds like a blessing. But we all know that this is being advertised as $300 and it's probably going to come out to be something quite a bit more than that when it launches on May 19th. NVIDIA is pretty aware up to this point. We've seen all the negative press that has been going around with 50 series that basically every single GPU that's launched, maybe except for the 5090, but that thing is so expensive that who cares about it. All these cards have been universally trashed by pretty much everything. I've had very little good things to say about it, mainly because the generation on generation improvement, like performance wise, isn't really that major, and the configurations and then the pricing when you get into the real world has been absolutely stupid. Initially, when I saw these announced, I thought they were going to be pretty good because it looked like Nvidia was dropping the prices for the generation, and then they actually launched, and it seems like maybe they're just trying to buffer the price a little bit for tariffs and stuff instead. And that would be assuming that Nvidia is acting in good faith, which what's crazy is Nvidia knows about this stuff, and we also saw Hardware Unboxed say this: Nvidia, we're not hiding the RTX 5060, we're very proud of it and gamers will love it. Also, NVIDIA, we're going to launch the 5060 on May 19th during Computex, which is a trade show that we'll be seeing here pretty soon. I'm actually not going to it. And although reviewers have cards right now, so it's probably saying that Steve, Hardware Unboxed, probably has a graphics card, a 5060 right now that he could be testing. They have them, but they won't be releasing the driver until they go on sale. Basically, the driver for the GPU isn't going to come out until literally the day May 19th that these release.
NVIDIA has confirmed that the RTX 5060 will be available on May 19th, but no drivers, so you can't test it, you can't review it.
They absolutely have the driver. They could release the driver in the next hour to tech media. They're not doing that because it's unlikely that it's going to get too many positive reviews because it's just such a heavily compromised product.
And a lot of reviewers and stuff are going to be going to this trade show. This is Computex. This starts on May 20th. Reviewers won't have the ability at all to even test the graphics card. This message has been also confirmed by a lot of other people, like Igor's Lab, which is also a GPU reviewer, and well, they get graphics cards and stuff. And also these AI images are just been no RTX 5060 analysis for launch on May 19th, no drivers, no party. Basically, they're not getting drivers either. Jay's 2 cents also came out with a video saying, why is NVIDIA trying to hide this? Basically the exact same thing they did for the RTX 5060 Ti, because there's two versions of that graphics card, the 8GB one and the 16GB one. And the 16GB one just so happens to be the only one that NVIDIA sent to reviewers to actually take a look at, because obviously it's going to be more positively received. Hardware Unboxed said they don't have a driver. If you guys aren't aware, like if you don't have the newest driver for a graphics card, it literally doesn't run. I can confirm on NVIDIA's press website, the latest driver that they have available on there is driver for the 5060 Ti 575.94. I'm not going to show you the press website or anything like that, but basically that's how they distribute drivers and press materials and that type of stuff. So I have access to that, so I can look at it. The latest driver that I actually still need to update to 576.28. The newest driver would be a higher number than this. A Gamers Nexus, Hardware Unboxed, Daniel Owen, Jay's 2 cents, LTT. They need to have testing so that they can launch a review on day one, so that if anybody, like how on May 19th this card is going to launch, that you guys and everybody can be able to see how it performs and actually be informed on it before making a purchase. I don't know why NVIDIA would do this. Obviously they're not proud of it. They want to hide it. They know it's gonna have issues. They know it's gonna be poorly reviewed. I actually think we'll just make the situation worse for the 5060, because the 5060 isn't something that I don't think most people are gonna be lining up outside of stores to get. Like when I bought a 5060 Ti, there was nobody there. We just walked in and got one even on day one release for this graphics card. Pretty lame. And I think the same thing is gonna go with the 5060. The mainstream. Let's just go back to the Steam charts. These are the top ones on Steam, 60 class cards. This is what most people are buying. If NVIDIA has to go through these many lengths to try to hide and obscure this new card, they're not proud of it. It just makes me think more and more of like how little things have improved through these generations of graphics cards. Like they have stagnated so heavy that we're getting a card that's a 4060 and 5060. Are these really going to be that different in the real world? Maybe the 5060 will be 20% faster or so. Bandwidth of the memory will help it quite a bit. I could see it in cases being 30% faster than the 5060, which is good on performance, but really the VRAM is going to hurt this graphics card quite a bit. That doesn't even bring me into the other one that we haven't talked about, the RTX 5050. Not great. So we've actually seen leaks about the RTX 5050 according to videocars.com here, that this thing is actually real. They already priced the 5060 at $300, so the 5050 would have to be cheaper than that, maybe $250 or something like that. And I'm not sure exactly where I got these specs from. This was leaked at some point. The 5050 have 2560 CUDA cores on it, which actually puts it at less CUDA cores than a 4060. I don't think it's even gonna beat a 4060 in terms of its performance. So this budget side of the market is actually just getting worse. Things are not improving year over year, and this is where most people buy graphics cards, and it's actually going to hold back the industry with things like 8GB of VRAM. But guys, let me show you something really cool, because if you want to, get a 50 series graphics card, these great graphics cards, then through Colorful, which is a board partner, they're going to give you cash back if you trade in a 16, 20, 30, or 40 series graphics card from NVIDIA and put that towards an RTX 50 card. So if you really want to do that, have fun. That brings me to, what is the competition going to do? There has been some more leaks about AMD's new graphics cards, the 9060 XT. What's bad is it seems like it's confirmed now that AMD is going to be doing an 8GB and a 16GB model. Now there's actually some leaks at some point, and this is from Moore's Law is Dead, as you can see down here. The 8GB version of it would maybe be canceled. According to a leaked listing on Amazon, this was a pre-order on Amazon. As you can see, the 9060 XT with 8GB was being priced at $450. So this would be AMD's cheaper option. It would be $450. Is nuts, bro. Then over here, the 16GB version would be $520. They wouldn't price it at $520 because technically their 9070 costs $550 if you were to talk about like the MSRP prices. So there'd be just no way in hell that this card would cost this much. We can also talk about the performance because we do have some of the specs down here. As you can see on the right side here, is actually the 9060 XT. 2048 cores at 3.23 gigahertz. Now, as you can see, the 9070 has like 75% more cores on it than the 9060 XT does, which will lead to greater performance, obviously, as you would think. Head over to Hardware Unbox's chart here again. We can see that the 9070 is right here on the charts, right by the 4070 Super and the 5070. 105 FPS. Around this area will probably be the 9060 XT. So it'll be probably competing in terms of performance with the 5060 Ti. And I would hope that AMD, NVIDIA's graphics card is 430 and 380, that AMD could at least cut them in price. With 16 gigs would be like 350 and the 8GB one would be like 300. I'm being realistic here. I wish the 8GB one would be a lot cheaper. It would be named something different. So apparently these cards are going to be launched at Computex as well, or they're going to be announced at Computex. Now I don't know exactly where this was, but I remember hearing pre-order date that was on Amazon for this leaked listing. Basically this accidental listing is going to be early June. The 9060 XT doesn't look great. I mean, it should match the 5060 Ti in terms of performance based off of the specs. We don't know in the real world. We'll find that out. I bet AMD will announce that at Computex. But this budget GPU market just doesn't look great. I don't know if AMD is going to release another card at a cheaper price point. I would hope so, like a 9050 XT. Does get me wondering as well, what if the idea of a budget graphics card completely changed? This is a desktop computer, a pre-built computer that's by Framework. You might have heard of Framework, a PC that uses a laptop chip in it that has an amazing APU on it. AMD called this GPU, or this APU, this is an AI Max processor. Pretty crazy. Apparently the AI Max 395 can beat a 4060 in some cases. Pretty decent performance, not gonna lie, for a built-in integrated chip. You can also configure it to have a lot more RAM and stuff. So like you can get 64 gigabytes of RAM that's shared between the CPU and the GPU. We're having VRAM problems right now. You could get more of that at possibly a cheaper price point because you're combining it with the CPU. Now, I think their PC itself is pretty expensive. Like if you just want the base model, which isn't as fast as the fastest one, it's at least $1,100. So this isn't like budget PC gaming, but it's not super unreasonable either. Like if you were to get $1,000 PC, like pre-built PC, actually be relatively close to this type of price point, but it gets pretty expensive as you go up in RAM, and it also is actually changing the configuration on the APU on it, so it changes some other things as well. But I'm wondering if something like this, where you'd have a combined GPU and CPU with memory soldered to the motherboard that could be pretty high capacity and stuff, if this could be where budget entry-level PC gaming could go in the future, like if these prices could come down, and then as long as the system itself has a PCIe slot, and then later on down the line you could upgrade the GPU if you really wanted to, and actually all of that RAM that you bought for the integrated GPU could then be used for your CPU and your system instead, or you could allocate more of it to that instead. Actually a pretty interesting idea and a direction that the market could go. Probably just get better as competition creeps in over time. Let me know on that. But these GPUs that we're seeing, like a 5060, 9060 XT and stuff that's coming up here soon, we've seen generation after generation that these are getting less and less impressive. I don't think things are getting really significantly better at all. Something is probably going to change, and I'm wondering what that's going to be. All I know is Nvidia is trying to hide the 5060. Maybe I'll try to buy one day one, try to have a good one, and make the most out of the PC that you have. All right.
Man, I'm just happy I bought my GPUs when I bought it.
It's not what's next. It's where. We're leaders in bioscience, aerospace, tech.
Welcome back to Paul's Tech News. We begin this week's recap of last week's tech news with a terrible announcement. This tech news show, as we know it, will cease to exist. For nearly 3 weeks, we will have 2 consecutive tech newsless Sundays until the coming of June, whereupon the show will be reborn from its own ashes, harder, stronger, and with sarcasm even less thinly veiled than ever before. But fear not, for between now and then, I'll still be posting lots of videos as we travel to Taipei, Taiwan for Computex 2025, where we'll be meeting with vendors and checking out new hardware and pretending everything is normal. But let's face it, things are far from normal, and there were multiple examples of that this week, such as Nvidia making some interesting choices for the upcoming RTX 5060 launch, Asetek finally loosening their 20-year grip on the AIO market due to their patent expiring, and Intel getting gamers' hopes up before letting them down yet again, which I guess is pretty normal after all. We're heading into a drought, so today, make sure to drink your fill of tech news. Cheers.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by Thermaltake's View 380 XL tempered glass ARGB mid-tower chassis with an innovative dual-chamber design and angled front intake to direct airflow towards components, keeping even power-hungry high-end PC builds cool while maintaining an unobstructed view. Hey, that's why it's called the View 380. Keep things clean with hidden connector motherboard support, keep cool with 4 included ARGB fans and multiple radiator mount locations for up to 360mm AIOs, and have fun building with plenty of room for cable management and added storage. For more on the View 380 XLTG ARGB from Thermaltake, click the sponsor link in the video description. Tech reviewers across the globe were up in arms this week, such as Jay's 2 Cents and Hard Steve Unboxed, after Nvidia confirmed that their next newest 50 series video card, the RTX 5060 non-TI edition, will be launching on May 19th for $299 MSRP. Sounds like a great deal to me, so what mewling complaints could Jilted Jay and Suspect Steve possibly have? Oh, sorry, apparently May 19th is right in the middle of Computex week, and that might make it hard for reviewers who are at the show and not at home to run benchmarks. Well, so sorry for the inconvenience, reviewers, but Nvidia probably just missed that little scheduling conflict when they set the launch date. I mean, it's not like Computex is the biggest show in the industry that happens in late spring every year and has had Jensen signed up to deliver a keynote since January. These mistakes happen naturally. And sure, maybe Nvidia said that they aren't providing drivers to reviewers until launch day, so day zero buyers will have zero idea of what kind of performance or lack thereof to expect from the 5060, which is outfitted with a generous 8GB supply of VRAM. But drivers are overrated anyway. I mean, they're basically free, right? I mean, you can just go download them. But do reviewers thank Nvidia for that? No, they ask, why is Nvidia blocking reviews? And why is Nvidia being deceptive and hiding the 5060's performance? Because f*** you, that's why. You wouldn't even have video cards if it wasn't for Nvidia, so stop your bitching, show some respect, and suck Nvidia's big fat market cap if you don't like it. With that said, one moment, quick phone call. Yeah, it's done. Yes. Yes, I told them to suck the, Jilted Jay, Suspect Steve, just like you said. So my family is okay, right? And okay, and the robot clones that are hunting down and replacing my closest friends, those are called off too? Okay, all right. Yeah, I agree, it is kind of a weird launch. All right, okay, see you in Taipei. Right, speaking of blackmail and skullduggery, Asetek, the company that has owned a patent on the combination pump block design for all-in-one liquid coolers since 2005, saw that patent expire Tuesday, which is why so many of your friends are just now getting into DIY liquid cooler assembly and sales. The past 20 years saw would-be AIO cooler manufacturers falling into three categories: those who paid Asetek for licensing or direct purchase of their OEM designs, those who Asetek sued or settled with when they attempted to ignore the patent, and those who skirted the patent by relocating the pump, adding an extra tube, or otherwise modifying the integrated pump and block design. Asetek was often accused of leaning on its patent and focusing more on enforcing it via legal means to maintain profitability instead of innovating with new products, but if that were true, they would probably just give up on AIOs entirely now that they've lost the advantage that the patent provided. So it's no surprise that Asetek says there's a third party interested in buying out the cooling hardware division of their company entirely, or that they are considering pivoting to a focus on data center cooling, leaving the consumer market behind now that it has been sucked dry, which likely caused the pump to fail. Can't let your pump run dry. Speaking of going in dry, the RX 9060 XT, which has been heavily rumored in recent weeks, was spotted in a retail Amazon listing Friday, with the horrible prices of $520 and $450 attached to the 16 gig and 8 gig versions respectively. Now, I have noted many times before that of all pre-launch leaks, retail pricing is the most likely to be incorrect, as retailers need to create product SKUs and landing pages early and often use placeholder pricing while waiting on the real pricing from Nvidia or AMD. But real prices, MSRP or whatever you want to call them, are so rarely honored at present that I'm inclined to give a bit more credence to these kinds of listings, because this might be what Amazon wants to sell the 9060 XT for, and if that's the case, it probably will be the price, and it won't matter when AMD's feeble "here's the MSRP" announcement goes live, because AMD clearly isn't protecting consumers from predatory pricing by backing up their MSRPs with some form of enforcement with retailers. Case in point, the RX 9070 and 9070 XT, which I would love to recommend at their supposed $550 and $600 MSRPs, can't be found for less than about $900 here in the US, which is dumb, and I will continue to feel that way unless AMD also decides to disappear my family, I guess. These listings do seem to confirm the previously leaked specs, though, with a 3.3 GHz boost clock. And now we boldly switch over to tech briefs, because one should never tech brief meekly. Intel Arc rumors are simultaneously the most hopeful and the biggest letdown when they come out, as there seems to be so much potential if Intel could just deliver. And unfortunately, it does not seem like they'll be delivering anything to interest gamers at Computex. A rumored 24 gig Arc GPU had some excited for the prospect of a B770 or B750 to follow up the popular, if only they were available at MSRP, Arc B580, but it is not to be. Intel confirmed that there'll be new Arc Pro Battlemage GPU series revealed at Computex, including a 24 GB Arc Pro B60, but they'll use the same BMG G21 chips as the B580. So other than in games where 12 GB of VRAM is a limitation, the Pro model will likely perform the same as the regular Arc B580. The Arc B580 was able to show itself off impressively in Suspect Steve's latest GPU comparison though, where the B580 went head-to-head against Nvidia's RTX 5060 Ti 8GB. While the 5060 Ti is typically 20 to 40% faster than the B580 when not VRAM limited, Steve showed it's not tough to go beyond 8 gigs, and you don't need to be playing at 4K or with max settings either. There are plenty of titles that chug or throw big frame delays up at 1440, and in those scenarios, the B580 clearly wins. Hopefully Jensen stopped watching after that first segment and I don't get in trouble for saying any of that though. In other Nvidia news looking for a bit of optimism, there have been quite a few articles like this lately, indicating that in some regions, GPU inventory has stabilized and pricing has become almost normal, if more than €2,000 for a GPU has become normal for you yet. Things still aren't great here in the US, where tariffs are a factor, but it does leave room for optimism that demand may abate as more units make it to market, leading to lower prices. And another factor might be the 5090D, which was supposed to be sellable in China due to hardware-limited AI capabilities, but has apparently also been export restricted, as it has the same GPU core count and memory as the regular 5090. This is still a rumor, but if true, I extend my sympathies to gamers in that region who had their sights set on a 5090D, but it does mean that Nvidia will likely attempt to sell those 5090D GPUs elsewhere, which could mean more 5090 class GPUs on the market outside of China. Lastly, a new Doom launched this week, The Dark Ages, which is available on PC and console, and seems to be getting good reviews thus far. 8.5s and 9s, with the game design looking appropriately dark, gory, and demon-infested, with a healthy array of melee weapons in true Dark Ages style, and reports of even more super fast and fluid FPS fun, which the series is known for. And with this being a single-player title, there's also a notably good storyline, which WCCF Tech describes as the icing on the extremely bloody and demonic cake. Sounds delicious, and now I'm all hungry. So, I guess it's time to say, so there you have it guys, tech news for the week. And if you liked it, click that like button or leave me a comment down below. While you're down there, all of the articles I talked about today are linked in the video's description if you're interested in reading more, and you can check out my store at paulshardware.net for high quality merchandise.
not bad. That's not bad at all. Let me see. What kind of socks they have. These are classic Hanes briefs. That's crazy. Classic Hanes, just because it got Supreme on it. Hey, $40. That's great. Alright, man, I'll be back, man. I'm finna go handle some business. Alright. Excuse me.